Hi, I'm author DJ LeJeune, and in today's video, I'd like to read for you the prologue and the first chapter of my novel Path of Relics, Aether Shard. So if you're curious about hearing the first couple of chapters of the story, especially how I, as the author, would read it and how I interpret it, this is your ticket. Please don't expect too much. I'm not a professional narrator or audiobook performer, but I will do my best, and I hope you enjoy it. So let's get started with the prologue of Path of Relics, Aether Shard. And I'll pull up the book here so that you can kind of read along with me if you'd like. Belief flooded into Jacob's mind, unwanted yet undeniable. He had seen a blood halo. It had flashed visibly only a moment before vanishing, but in that heartbeat, it appeared as solid as the ancient stone walls surrounding them. True as Lofton's blade when it sliced through the putrid, hound-like beast now lying crumpled on the temple's broken tile floor. It could mean only one thing. Jacob's mind had snapped, and he was going to die. Across the dimly lit chamber, Lofton called to him. The armored nobleman warned more hound creatures were coming, his tone urgent. But the words reached Jacob like a whisper in a howling storm. If anyone discovered he'd seen a blood halo, they would surely hang him as a demon, like all blood seers through the centuries. The heat of a torch near his face yanked Jacob back to his wits. Jacob, snap free of your stupor. Lofton waved the torch again for good measure. We've killed but one guardian. More lurk in the shadows. Are you injured? No, my lord, Jacob stammered, startled is all. A shuffling noise near the chamber wall drew their attention. Lofton tossed the torch and readied his longsword. Prepare yourself. Jacob lifted his warhammer from the rubble-strewn floor where he'd dropped it. Relieved, the nobleman asked no further questions. Of all the titles one might gain, Bloodseer rated worst. Not even the filthy, oppressive mongrels of southern Naor evoked such loathing. He thought of Beth, sitting on the porch of their dusty farm, looking anxiously to the path for his return. What would she think of her demon father? What might the townfolk do to a demon's daughter? Jacob shook his head. He'd be lucky even to see Beth again, entombed as he was in this forgotten eldritch temple. Lofton's promise of gold might bring far too heavy a price. Unless Jacob's suspicions of the Lord's true motivations proved correct. After all, Jacob could no longer deny blood halos as superstitious tales. Might the legends of the relic be real as well? Come to the center, Lofton said. Stay near me. They backed up together. The walls glistened green and wet in the torchlight, a stark contrast to the mossy stone door that had shut like a guillotine upon entering the room. The stench of stagnant water and mildew mixed with the decay of something Jacob hoped was an animal. A snarl erupted from the edge of the chamber, and more freakish creatures sprinted toward them. By the dead gods, Jacob yelled. Gray and slimy, the beasts ran on two legs, but had hound-like heads with finned spikes atop. Jacob swung his warhammer into the nearest creature's gut, producing a wet crunch. And again, he saw it. A blood halo floated crimson above the beast's head like a fierce crown. Jacob backpedaled, allowing the monster advantage. It slashed his chest with razor claws, then crashed into him, its sewer breath cold on his face. He cursed at his shocked distraction, then grappled with the hound creature, yanking it aside as his pulse thrummed. He flung the monster to the ground and pummeled it until, after 5 desperate blows from his hammer, it lay dead. Jacob glanced at his forearm, checking his lifeline. Dismayed, the dark patch of skin was only half its usual length. Lofton struggled with another hound man, dodging its clawed attacks. Jacob approached to lend aid, but 2 more creatures appeared from the chamber's dark corners, blocking his path. He readied his massive warhammer, breathing hard. Then Lofton was beside him, cutting one of the two dog-headed demons in half. With a twist of his body, the Lord thrust his sword back into the other beast, killing it instantly. The blood-red rings hovering above each creature's head ebbed to black and vanished. Jacob shuddered. For a moment, neither of them moved, listening for the entry of more monsters. None came. He watched Lofton's face for signs of shock, for any hint he had also seen the halo, and that Jacob was not alone in his madness. But only placid determination shone in the man's eyes. Jacob lowered his hammer and grunted as a searing pain spread across his chest. A claw had gashed through his leather armor and into the flesh. Lofton sheathed his sword and paced over, inspecting the injury. He grasped Jacob's arm and flipped it, exposing the half-empty lifeline on the underside of Jacob's forearm. The nobleman grimaced. "You lied," Jacob said. "You claimed these ruins were empty. Not even the ghosts of the Eldreds in those halls is what you said." He pointed to the hacked remains of the houndmen. "Do those look like ghosts to you?" "Save your false outrage. You never truly believed that." Lofton produced a vial of pearl milk from his pouch and held it out. Jacob snatched the vial and downed its contents. He relaxed as the lifeline on his forearm grew, the edge of the dark strip inching up his pale skin towards the soft flesh of his wrist. "Legends told by your grandfather's grandfather warn of the terrors awaiting in the Eldred's deserted temples." Lofton stepped in close, his blue eyes piercing. "Yet of all the desperate men in the tavern yesterday, you alone accepted my offer. Why?" Jacob shuffled back a step. Of the two of them, he stood taller, but in full armor, Lofton proved an intimidating figure. And besides, the man was arguably the most powerful noble in all of North Naor. "I've heard rumors. I know of your cause." Lofton gave a faint smile. "Then you know what I seek. A relic. The relic." "It exists then?" Jacob asked. "How can you doubt it after what you've witnessed?" Jacob's eyes widened. "Does Lofton know about the halos?" "How do you mean?" "Look around you." Lofton held his arms wide. "The guardians of legend protect these forbidden halls. The Eldred's ancient machines still function." Jacob pursed his lips and nodded toward the sealed stone door. "Of that, what good my belief if we're trapped here?" Lofton held up a finger and pulled a stone tablet from his waist pouch. He inspected it, then stepped among the felled creatures as if searching for something. Near the largest beast, he stooped and dipped his hand into the corpse's wrecked flesh. When he stood, his fist glowed blue. He opened his hand and revealed a stone the size of a fig. Sapphire light emanated from it, as if a steady blue flame burned within. Carved into its center was a circle surrounded by zigzag lines, like a drawing of the sun. "The Eldred were fond of keys of all ilk," Lofton said. "Keys of wisdom, keys of strength, and keys of stone." "The first path stone," Jacob whispered. Lofton nodded. "Think of it. Once we find the relic, we can restore the lands and peoples of the north to their ancient glory. And finally, the pompous nobles of the south will know the true descendants of the Eldred." The nobleman walked to the far end of the chamber, placing the glowing blue rock against a metal plate on the wall. The trap door at the chamber entrance slid into the ceiling, the grind of stone against stone rumbling Jacob's insides. Near Lofton, a second door opened, leading farther into the ruins. Returning to Jacob, Lofton pulled a brown fabric sack from his waist. He shook it, and the coins inside jangled. "You're free to leave, if you wish." Jacob took the heavy sack. "Return to your family and farm," Lofton said. "You may thrive for a time, yet we both know how long the Southern Realm's false friendship will last as their power continues to rise." The sack of gold, hefty as a mallet in Jacob's hand, would go a long way to restoring the farm. He had only to walk out that door, walk home to his daughter, but not to safety or honor. Not so long as the South, with its stranglehold on commerce and its people's perverse customs, held dominance. Besides, he was a bloodseer now. Beth was better off without him. He met Lofton's eyes. If I am to turn from farmer to pathseeker, let it be in the pursuit of the relic that might return our lands to their former glory. That will guarantee my family lasting happiness and freedom. I will join you, if you'll have me. Lofton smiled and gestured toward the door leading deeper into the temple. In the room beyond, a faint blue-green light rendered their torches unnecessary. Dust-covered obelisks lined the center of the large chamber, some toppled. Jacob followed Lofton through the obelisks, stepping carefully among the rubble, vigilant for movement from the walls. They found a marble pedestal at the back of the chamber. Near it, a boulder the size of a wagon glowed with teal light, symbols carved into its sides. Jacob circled the luminous boulder. The rock emitted a low hum, tinged with the tinkling like shattered glass. Lofton again consulted his stone tablet, then touched the marble pedestal's surface. A lightning storm erupted over their heads, and a shimmering orb appeared in the air. Jacob blinked, not believing his eyes. The orb had surged from the size of a grape to that of a barn in an instant. It filled a large cavity at the end of the chamber, and a brilliant white ring surrounded it. Jacob shielded his eyes from the intense spectacle. Light filtered softly inside the towering ball, like the sun as seen from under the surface of a pond. Somehow, water filled the orb. Lofton again touched the pedestal, and the water within the orb dwindled. Where the liquid drained, Jacob couldn't see. The floor under the floating sphere remained dry as bone. Yet, as the water level dropped, shapes became clear within the ball. Jacob stepped closer, the shapes resolving into a dark lake surrounded by distant mountains. But strange cracks seemed to mar the surface of the sphere, distorting his view. He walked the perimeter of the massive orb, finding nothing but the chamber wall behind it. His eyebrows furrowed. How? Suddenly, a foaming whirlpool formed in the lake. The mountains, barely visible inside the now flickering orb, rose from the water. But that wasn't right. The peaks weren't growing taller. Instead, the waters receded. In minutes, the entire lake had drained. With a pop, the strange orb vanished, taking the view of the mountains and now empty lake with it. Lofton laughed, almost manic with excitement. Come, there is much to prepare. We aim for nothing less than the restoration of our people and our pride. Our quest for the Aether Shard has begun. At that exact moment, a floodgate operator in New York City's Lower Bay dialed the emergency control center in a panic. This is Barry at Gatehouse 11. All of my channels are opening. Can you confirm? Just a moment, came the voice from the other line. Gatehouse 11, I'm showing all gates shut tight here on the board. Have you done a diagnostic on your panel? I've got a visual right now. Barry ran to the windows of the control room. Every gate down the line on both sides is opening. That's not possible. It's high tide. Can you shut them down? I have no control here. Barry tapped some commands on his console. I'm locked out of the system. I'm showing all gates are closed already. Oh, God. Call them, now, Barry shouted. Who? Everyone. FEMA, the National Guard. Get an emergency broadcast out on all bands, including AR. In about 30 minutes, half the people of New Jersey will be floating in their beds. Chapter 1. Grinding. 16 hours earlier. Terry adjusted his shin sensors, wincing as one brushed against his bandaged knee. Then he hobbled toward his foe, who waited among the blazing, augmented reality billboards of Times Square. The crowd of tourists parted as Terry passed, some shaking their heads. Just like being on a quest, Terry thought, like grinding for loot. Grinding and grinding and grinding. We don't need to do this, his opponent said as Terry approached. I don't want to take any more of your money. I don't have any money left to take, Terry said. The guy snorted, holding out his arms. So what are you putting up? Terry tapped his temple. My glasses. Murmurs came from the crowd surrounding them. The man scrutinized Terry's specs, the flash of Times Square's traditional LED billboards playing across his face. How old are those things? They work fine, Terry shrugged. They'd still fetch more than you've already won. Come on, winner take all. I can't take your AR glasses, man. The guy shook his head and smirked at his group of goon friends standing behind. This guy's getting desperate. You sound worried. It's okay. I'll go easy on you. Terry winked. The man scoffed. Right. Like when you bombed the last 2 rounds? I'm feeling lucky now. Someone in the crowd chuckled. The man simply stared, eyes hidden behind his mirrored AR glasses. Just take him out, Joe, said a goon from the man's entourage. Joe pulled at his ear, then shrugged. More money for drinks, I suppose. He handed the wad of cash to his mouthy minion, and the crowd whistled and clapped as he pulled his haptic gloves back on. Terry grinned and shook out his arms. All right, let's do this. So I don't get tossed out on the street tonight, or worse, end up in communal. Terry tapped the frame of his AR glasses, and a Cali-ball field appeared. The circular arena surrounded him and Joe by 20 feet, its purple, yellow, and green grid lines visible to anyone tuned to the augmented reality channel Terry broadcast publicly. The buildings and billboards of Times Square seemed to dim around them. Glowing rods, each 21 inches long, appeared in Terry and Joe's hands. An industrial rock track mixed with electronic beats started playing, and the match began. Terry swiped wildly as a ball of red light, timed to the beat of the music, rocketed toward him. He grazed it, causing it to careen into the crowd. An onlooker ducked instinctively, despite the ball and rod being only AR projections. More luminous orbs shot toward the competitors. Each man twisted and turned, finding the best angle on the line of incoming spheres. Their neon batons snapped with such speed and precision they blurred into walls of light. Terry tottered, favoring his bandaged knee. Joe smiled at the flub. He had to give Joe credit. The guy hadn't missed a hit yet. Cali-ball was never the same, always generating balls from random directions to match the beat. That way, no player could ever excel at the song by memorization. But the Cali-ball field was shrinking, forcing Terry and Joe to step closer together, within striking distance. The crowd bobbed and danced, clapping to the music. Terry grinned. Time to pick up the pace. He whipped around, striking a row of balls firing at him from behind. His haptic gloves vibrated on each hit. The thin, taut bands running along his arms and connected to his vest provided mild force feedback, further stimulating each impact. Joe glanced over, shocked at Terry's rising score, and missed a few hits. Terry lunged closer, eliminating a ball to his right. With his other rod, he swiped downward at Joe. The man blocked, then slashed back. Terry parried this, and a ball caught Joe in the back. Cheers and claps from the crowd. As they danced around each other, Terry did his best to keep the point levels close, struggling through his fatigue. It was almost noon, and he hadn't eaten since breakfast yesterday, but he'd worried about affording a meal after making rent. The last balls of the song sped toward them. Terry batted them away and, seeing Joe open, nailed him with 3 swift stick strikes to the head and elbow. Terry's score shot up, winning him the match by a large margin. He sucked in through his teeth. Damn, too much. The crowd of tourists roared with cheers and applause. Then they dispersed, looking for their next dose of entertainment. Terry switched off the Kalibal stream. The rods and grid lines disappeared, and the full, unmuted bedlam of Times Square assaulted his senses. Great match, he said to Joe through labored breathing. He hobbled to the goon holding the cash and reached for it, but the guy pulled it away. Joe walked over, barely winded. Yeah, about that. Come on now, Terry said. What's all this? Joe stepped in close. Why don't you tell me? You move pretty good for someone with a gimp leg, especially on that last round. He pushed Terry, causing him to bump into one of Joe's minions. It's a little convenient, don't you think? I got lucky, Terry straightened himself. It happens, even to a crap player like me. No one's that lucky. Joe grabbed Terry's shirt and yanked him to the side. Terry quickly shuffled his feet to keep balance. Joe scoffed. Your knee seems fine. He's probably some gurker looking for a quick buck, another one of the goons said. How did he know? Terry glanced above his head, worried he'd left his display on. He hadn't. Yeah, Joe looked Terry up and down. He does look like a gurker to me. Maybe it was his clothes? They were a bit worn. He struggled to break free, but Joe gripped his shirt tighter. You think I'm an idiot, gurker? Joe asked. Think you can hustle me? Actually, when I first saw you, Terry said, I thought you looked like a chump. I was mostly right. Terry switched his Kalibal stream back on, hoping Joe and friends were still tuned in. The multicolored arena popped into existence around them, causing the brightness of Times Square to dim. They all jumped in surprise. That was enough. Terry shouldered into Joe, knocking him into his friends. In the confusion, Terry snatched the money out of the goon's hand and ran. Grab him, Joe shouted. 4 of Joe's minions gave chase. Terry reached 46th and headed east, then sprinted for the next block as they rounded the corner behind him. The effort of Kalibal, and now a full-out sprint, made him breathe so hard his upper chest burned. He turned another corner and ducked into a narrow alley, squeezing behind a dumpster. He crouched there, wheezing until his pursuers passed. After 10 minutes, when all seemed quiet, Terry stood and brushed himself off. Well, that wasn't ideal. He ripped off the knee brace, poked his head out of the alley, and started down the street. As Terry had discovered over the years, hustling was a fickle illicit activity, often with only slightly better odds than gambling. Fortunately, today he'd come out ahead. Paul, boot up, Terry said. AI Paul, booting on, a male voice said in Terry's ear. Terry ducked under the awning of a pizza joint, looking left, then right. Count this for me, will you? He flipped through the stack of bills in sight of the camera of his AR glasses. I count $160, Master Terry, Paul said. Would you like me to add it to your total for the day? Not everyone used voiced interaction with their AI assistant. Many opted for frame taps or hand gestures or even a simple wristwatch to navigate commands, the latter two effective even with augmented reality contact lenses. But Terry enjoyed speaking to his AI. Plus, he gave Paul a pleasant, posh British accent. Predictable, sure, but he couldn't imagine Paul sounding any other way. Yes, add it, and display my progress. I'm going to need motivation to make this happen in time. A vertical black bar appeared in the right of Terry's peripheral vision. The top of the bar displayed $500. Paul added the money from the Kalibal match to Terry's take for the day, and the bar filled in gold to the halfway mark. And you had better double this by 3 p.m., sir, Paul said, his voice stern, or Macy will have a squad of gurkers flinging your bed onto the street. The AI paused. Is this assisting in your motivation, Master Terry? Yes, Paul, thanks. That's just great. Asleep on a couch, by the way. Just 3 hours to make what he needed, transfer it to Macy, then rush to Jersey for the walk-in job application. To get there early, before the mass of other job-displaced and climate nomads lined up ahead of him. Tight, but possible, if he got lucky. To think, he might finally crawl free from this cycle of random gigs and ramen noodles. Someone entered the pizza joint behind him. The scent of pepperoni and melted cheese wafting out made Terry's mouth water and his head swim. He swallowed and started back towards Times Square. Usually lots of work available in that area. Unfortunately, he couldn't risk another hustle today. That might bring heat he just didn't need. The hard way it is, then. He had Paul turn on his overhead display, signaling Terry as available for work. He trekked among the city's towering skyscrapers, each building flashing bright blue, pink, and purple, even during the day, since most surfaces broadcast augmented reality billboards directly to his AR glasses. Along the sidewalk, augmented reality advertisements flitted in and out of vision. A neon green Marine blocked Terry's path, sniper rifle in hand, promoting yet another new FPS virtual reality game. He walked through the projection, not slowing down. Across the street, an AR billboard on the side of a building displayed a grungy castle town. The scene switched to rolling green meadows, then to a vast, dark forest filled with mist. Path of Relics. Terry stopped, his urgency withering, like a wraith struck by a paladin casting holy light. Path of Relics, the most anticipated game tournament of the past decade, happening here in Manhattan this weekend. Most of the top active VR athletes had joined. It would be the Battle Royale event of the year. But Terry didn't care about any of that. Underneath the gratuitous, tacked-on Battle Royale tournament, Path of Relics, or POR for short, was the first major RPG in over a decade. In full modern tech virtual reality, allegedly more immersive than any VR experience to date. What would it be like to walk through those green fields, trekking to a monster-infested cave? Or sailing the seas to lands unknown, of which POR apparently had many? For a heartbeat, his hunger and poverty-fueled mania vanished. A light blinked in Terry's peripheral vision, and he sighed. Yes, Paul? Your AI, online now. Sir, may I remind you of your previously stated goal? You now have 2 hours and 44 minutes to procure your funds. Yes, I know that, Paul. Thanks. If it would help, sir, I could block all advertisements of the Path of Relics tournament until after you've achieved your goal. No, it's fine. Terry squinted his eyes. Why would I want you to do that? Since the tournament was announced 2 weeks ago, you've searched the term Path of Relics 178 times, spending a total of 10.7 hours. Yeah, I got it. Terry batted the disembodied voice away. He'd be lucky if he even got to watch the tournament, since he'd likely be scrounging for work or a new place to live. He huffed. When might POR release for mere mortals like him to play? Not that it mattered. He'd be hard-pressed to afford the game, let alone the rumored new tech required to play it properly. Terry let his head fall back and resumed his trek toward Times Square. Okay, Paul, block it. Permanently. I never want to see another reference to Path of Relics. Fantasy was for those who could afford it. He had more pressing concerns, like making rent, then arriving early to the first full-time job opening in months he might actually qualify for. If only leveling up was as easy in real life as it was in a role-playing game. After checking his usual spots on the west side and finding no work, Terry had Paul bring up the Gurker network. The shops along 8th Avenue dimmed as the list of jobs scrolled down his vision. Not much. A few local delivery jobs paying around $20 each. Even if he hustled, it'd be near impossible to complete enough of those in time to make what he needed. He was about to accept one of the delivery gigs and hope for the best when he got a message from his roommate. Jason had been offered an off-the-network gig with a payout of $280, but he was working another gig across town and couldn't take it, so he'd passed the offer on to Terry. Terry's pulse raced until he read the details. It was a tube hop accompanying a shipment out to Schaefer Communal in the Hamptons. It was 12:30 now, and he wanted to be in Newark waiting in line for the open job interview by 3. For a tube hop, it was rather short, but far enough in the opposite direction to potentially make him late. That wasn't an option, since he knew from experience how indifferent HR managers became after interviewing too many people in a row. Plus, the thought of willingly going into a communal turned his stomach sour. Still, what would it feel like to get ahead for a change? A job this hot wouldn't last long before going to the general Gurker feed, and with cutthroats like Zara, he swore that woman somehow tracked his communications to get the jump on him for gigs. He needed to decide now. For a moment, he considered his only other option: miss the job opening entirely and complete enough small gigs in the extra time that freed up to make rent. He glanced at the Gurker for Hire sign projected above his head. Imagined it there for the next few hours, the next year, the next 20. Terry's shoulders slumped. Better middle of the line than in the back, I guess. He accepted the communal gig. A hypertube hop and an automated van ride brought Terry to the Hamptons. No longer a haven for the rich, the new coastline had submerged most waterside properties years ago. The massive Schaefer communal squatted on what was once prime golf course. He guided an electric sled full of supplies out of the back of the van. Then he navigated the rows of tenements. The communal looked tidier than he'd expected. Its cluster of white, 6-story buildings was bright in the sunlight, and the sidewalks and courtyards surprisingly free of trash. Despite all that, Terry's jaw clenched as he strode across the grounds. He shook away the silly thought of some giant dropping a glass dome over the entire area, sealing him inside. The exterior may look nice, but the apartments within would certainly be shabby. He imagined the clean white buildings with dark windows like so many dominoes, each ready to topple onto the next, bringing the entire complex down in a crash of shattered lives. He took a deep breath, recalling the windswept meadow from the Path of Relics promotional. The tension in his shoulders eased. Terry checked the packing slip for his destination among the maze of buildings. He couldn't help but read the contents. A small amount of canned goods and contraceptives, not nearly enough for all the residents of the communal. But the overwhelming majority of the pallet's contents, and the reason a person was necessary for obtaining a signature, were thousands of antidepressants, one of the most valuable commodities on the market today. He scanned the courtyards for suspicious groups of teens. If anyone knew what he was transporting. But only small children played in the grassy courtyards, their parents watching from nearby tables. Fluke, he thought. Good thing it was daytime. Terry found the main office, dim, dirty, and with a reek of body odor, as expected, and completed the delivery. The bar in his AR vision filled in gold past the $500 mark, and augmented reality fireworks lit the sky, giving him a private celebration. Paul, turn them off. AI Paul, back on. Sorry, sir. I thought it would be a nice touch. The festivities cut off mid-explosion. Terry hurried back toward the van, checking the time. If he got lucky with the hypertube and autocabs, he might still beat half the crowd to the job opening. Across the sidewalk ahead, a man lay face down, eyes closed, feet strewn off the path like litter. A trail of drool streaked down his chin to pull on the concrete. Terry paused, then stepped over him and continued to the van. It wasn't the first time he'd seen someone passed out in communal, likely drunk or overdosed on cheap drugs, probably a criminal, or someone's father. Terry stopped, sighed, and turned back. He checked the man's neck for a pulse and found it, then retraced his steps to the office to alert administration. By the time Terry was back at the van, staff members had an IV in the man's arm and were lifting him onto a stretcher. They were quick, probably lots of practice. Why did he even bother? The man would likely be in the same position next week. The guy lived in a communal, after all. On the tube back to the city, Terry did his best to forget the entire experience. No telling how many other applicants would be waiting in line before him now. So he'd just have to nail his interview, is all. used the hustling skills he'd honed over years of gigging to come across as intelligent, capable, steady job material. Like they said, fake it till you make it. A red light blinked in his AR vision. Yeah, what is it, Paul? Paul signed on and gave Terry news that almost knocked him from the seat. I know you asked me to block it, Master Terry, but I thought this an exception. It appears you've been selected to try out for our last-minute entry into the Path of Relics tournament. Well, that's it for the prologue and the first chapter of Path of Relics Aether Shard. I hope you enjoyed it. The book is available on Amazon if you'd like to check it out and read farther. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, hit the subscription button, click the notification bell. We're going to be coming up with more stories to read for you, short stories that I've written going forward, probably on a playlist that I have specifically for stories like this. So again, thanks for checking this out, and I'll see you next time.